What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 117 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And of course, don't forget to join the Discord channel. I'll have a link in the description below. Right now, I'm doing a poll on my next ship build. That's going to be picking up immediately after the Enterprise D is finished. And if you want to be involved in that, be sure to join the Discord. Once you join, there'll be a tab on the left-hand side listed as Next Build Poll. I've generated that list based off of my top requests on YouTube, so definitely be sure to check that out. Also, if you can help me out and share this video, share my channel, I'm incredibly grateful for that, but I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Once I hit 1,000, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the U.S.S. Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond, and it's going to be a refit of that ship. I'm really looking forward to working on that. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. So we're going to be working on the deflector dish again, and also some other lower parts of lower engineering. We've got about a 23-minute episode. And we're not going to be finishing up the deflector dish today, the interior of it. We're going to be getting a good chunk of it done. And we're also going to be working on where we left off in the last video, working on the lower part of engineering. You know, it's funny because I actually had somebody ask me a question in the comments on my Discord channel about, why it's taken me so long to work on the engineering, and that they, felt that engineering should be like the first thing they work on a ship. And that's definitely valid. I think to each his own, but with what I'm doing and how I do my ships, pretty much my priority is always one thing. It's your corridors. And the reason I like doing my corridors first is because it can help you get a layout for where everything's going to go on your ship. Because you have that set up, then you can basically set your areas apart right away. So as we did this build, I had my corridors put down on the saucer section, and then the turbo lifts going down into the lower hull, and immediately at the very bottom of the turbo lift and lower hull, that was engineering. Even though I didn't work on it right away, that area was still dedicated to it. And the reason why engineering is kind of taken so long right now is because engineering has kind of, it's not just one area. Because on TNG, you just saw that one room, but the reality of it is that engineering is actually multiple decks. And it's going to be that way on my ship. And it's also going to tie into the deflector dish. So really, even though today's episode is the deflector dish, it's still technically engineering, because it all ties into each other. And there's a rhythm to my madness and why I do these things the way that I do them. I have my starting off point, and I build around that starting off point. And in this case, my main reference for engineering that was in TNG, I started with that, and then I expanded upon that, adding decks going above it into the neck of the ship, and then going down where we're at right now into the deflector dish, and then the engineering area that will be behind the deflector dish, that we'll be working on a little bit later in today's episode as well. But you can honestly start these in any order. It really doesn't matter whether you start. Once you get your corridors in place, that's really the one thing that I recommend that you start with over anything else. Is corridors is the first thing that you should do. But after that, as long as you have your areas set apart, you can honestly start with any area on this ship, and it's not going to impede on it whatsoever. You know what I mean? But for me anyway, having those corridors in place is it's vital for the build, because I can only talk from experience. There have been times on my older builds where I didn't always have this thinking, and what ended up happening when I built in that way, that I'd basically have to backtrack a lot and move things around because I didn't prep out my corridors first, and then I had to make changes to the build in order to accommodate for those. So that's one of the reasons why I do things the way that I do now. And as you can see, it's very nice and neat. We've got our corridors in place. We've got our turbo lifts in place on the left and right side of our deflector dish on the interior, and now we're going to use that as a starting point to build out our wall here. And we're not just going to do a flat line, and we're not actually going to end up using this entire chunk of the these black rods that I built out going backwards. We're going to take off a couple of rows of them, because it turns out I just didn't need as many as I originally built out. And then, you know, it's funny because I actually kind of took my I initially did the rings for the inner side of the deflector dish early on in the tutorial, and then I kind of took a break from it for a while. And you know, the reason for that is because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, you know. And this goes back into that: if you're not sure what you want to do, take a break from it, work on something else, let it marinate, think about what you'd want to do, and then come back to it with a fresh set of eyes, and you might surprise yourself. Sometimes the best thing to do from something is take a break. Even right now, where I'm at on the build, I'm actually taking a short hiatus from working on the Enterprise D, because I've pretty much been almost working on it non-stop. I've taken a couple of breaks here and there over the course of the past year, but I've pretty much, in the last couple of weeks, I've done a lot of work on it, because I really wanted to get the entertainment deck done, and you know, I really wanted to get the build done, and I'm reaching that point where I'm getting a lot closer to it being completed. So rather than getting burnt out on it, I decided, like, well, I'm going to take maybe a week break from working on it, maybe 2 weeks. We'll see how that goes. Because especially this past week, non-related to that, you know, it was actually pretty difficult for me because I had a funeral to go to, and that was just, the last couple weeks have been incredibly hard in that regard. So I haven't really been in the mood to build. Even though Minecraft is fantastic at help taking your mind off things, and that would probably be a good reason to get on Minecraft, just to take my mind off of stuff. But just this past week, I haven't wanted to build anything, you know. But next week, we'll see. I'll probably end up hopping on next week and trying to get to a closer point to wrap this build up, because there's really not that much left to do. I mean, there is, but there isn't, because like at this point on the build, I really only have some more rows of windows to do, the registration on the outside of the ship. I've got to finish the crew deck with all the quarters, and then I have to do the medical deck, and then it's done. Well, actually, no, and I take that back. I have the back end of the lower hull, and then it's done. But really approaching that point where I'm checking areas off a lot faster, because, you know, for a good year almost, it felt like none of that was happening. But, you know, this is why it's important to have a lot of patience when you're working on these ships, because especially when working on a ship this size, it may not feel like you're ever getting anywhere. But this is, you know, why we take it one episode at a time and don't do too much at once. You know, this is why I don't do 50-minute episodes or 2-hour episodes, because it's best to just take your time. And that's exactly how I did this build. You know, a lot of my videos, you know, they'll end up being, you know, between 18 and 25 minutes long. But majority of those episodes are actually clips that I've done in separate build sessions, because what I'll do to help myself out on editing, anytime I work on something, you know, I'll record it, but if I'm not sure what I want to do, or I'm not immediately building in that moment, I'll stop recording. So that ends up actually being great, because then I could take little intermissions here and there, and it makes editing super easy. Because when I first started doing these tutorials on the Disco Enterprise, there was like a couple episodes here and there where I had some points where I was just sitting there looking at the ship, and I decided, you know, I wanted to eliminate that as much as possible. But anyway, getting back into our build here, you can see that we're just building out our back wall. And what I did, I just went off the shape that we had to work with off of the bottom part of our warp core area that goes into engineering. You can see I just extended those blocks down and used that as a template for the wall. And then these two bottom decks here, I'm cutting out the wall on the closest side to the deflector dish. This is going to be a lower entry point into the deflector dish. So again, this is showing out my rhythm to my madness, and you know, why it's important to plan these things out. Um, I'll be the first one to say that, what I'm doing here is not set in stone. You can build these ships in any order that you want to. I don't think any way is wrong, but just what's worked for me, you know, I'm telling you, start with your corridors and start with your turbo lifts, because you do that and your ships are going to come out a lot more organized. Um, if you want an example of a much less organized ship, the 2009 Enterprise build that I did is a perfect example of that. But for a first attempt, it wasn't bad. I didn't have any of these fundamentals in place when I built the ship. This is just something that you learn over a period of time of working on them. So we're in pretty good shape here. We're getting this back wall done, and you can see I'm just building it going straight up. We're not, after we did that initial curve on the sides, as soon as we get past the turbo lifts, we're building off of that same block. And we're just going to bring that going all the way up. So now finally our deflector control room is starting to come together. Now, like I said, we won't get it done today. I think that after today's episode, I think we're going to make 2 more passes at the deflector dish. We're going to add a layer to the walls and ceiling, because I'm actually going to be adding in windows in this area, and I decided that I didn't want those windows to be coming into the deflector control room. It didn't make sense to me, so I ended up, as a solution for that, I just turned those windows into facades, and I added an extra layer on the inside, so this way from the inside of the ship you can't see them, but you still have the windows on the outside. And then after that, I think the last pass we'll make at it is when we come in to add in the crew walkways. And I'm pretty sure when we do the crew walkways, we flesh out the inner mechanism for the deflector dish itself. That'll be pretty cool. So you see I'm skipping one deck. I could have went the first deck, but I'm going to go one deck down. Because you want enough room here, you want enough headway in the roof, because I'm going to have like a nice walkway connecting the 2 turbo lifts together on either side, and this way, it'll be like a nice area to walk through and observe the deflector control room. And I think what we're going to end up doing here is walling off the other side now. Now, you can do whatever you want, but what I ultimately decided to do was that we don't necessarily need to take advantage of all this room that goes in front of the deflector dish. I just decided the simplest thing to do at this point was just to wall off the sides and to make it flat. This goes back into one of my things where I'm not afraid to have a little bit of dead space here and there if I have something else in mind that I want to do. Now, if you really wanted to, I'm sure you probably could clean up the sides there and have that going at an angle if you think that looks better. Because, again, what I'm doing here, this is not a set way of doing it. This is just what I did, what worked for me, and what I like to doing. At the end of the day, it's dealer's choice. Do what you think looks best and just run with it. We were looking pretty good here. Got a couple more rows to do, and I think after we do this, we're going to head back to the back end of engineering where we left off in the last episode and work on those walkways that we started out. We'll say the last video this week, that one's going to be a long one. That one's actually going to be a 50-minute episode. I was actually thinking about splitting it up into 2, but I just decided that every once in a while I think it's okay, I can get away with it, but it's something that you're not going to see me do very often, is have these 50-minute episodes. Um, but in this case, because I'm trying to get through this ship as much as I can, um, I'm not going to split up any building sessions unless it goes over an hour. If it goes over an hour, then I'll split it up. But yeah, we've got a 50-minute episode coming up on this coming Saturday. I believe that'll drop on. All right, so now we've got our wall in place. You can see I'm going to add a lip here going along the edge where ceiling and walls meet this back wall. Ironically enough, this is going to be the template for the extra layer that I was talking about that we're going to be adding. So we're going to let that go for a minute. Even though it's taken a year to build this ship out, I think, in all honesty, that I'm making pretty decent progress on it. It's going to be one of those things, like on a ship this size, it's going to take some time to flesh it all out, and I think all things considered, I think I've done a pretty good job in the time frame that I've had to work on it. Because you'll be able to see all those details. Like I had somebody comment on my Discord the other day that they can see where that year went and all the detailing. And I definitely appreciate that, because that's exactly what I've been doing. I'm spending all this time detailing out the ship and taking that time to flesh out the interior to have a super detailed interior as much as I possibly can. And yeah, I think that when this thing is done, that's honestly what I'm looking forward to. When this thing is done, first of all, I'm going to fall over and just take a break from Minecraft for like 2 weeks, because I've been working on this thing almost nonstop for a year. And then I'll go into the next build, which is more than likely going to end up being Voyager, because right now that's my top build request. And ironically enough, it's the #1 build in my current poll right now. Voyager is currently winning out, ironically. So I think that's more than likely going to be what we end up doing after the Enterprise D, which I'm fine with. If it ends up being another ship on my list, I mean, I'm cool with either way. But yeah, after the Enterprise D is done, I'm going to take a short break from Minecraft, and of course I'll do a tour of the ship and maybe a music video for it. I don't know, we'll see. But that's honestly what I'm really looking forward to, is walking through this thing and seeing what it looks like completed, because it's slowly but surely reaching that state. And then it's cool, like some of the areas in the ship, like they're completely done, and walking through those areas, it's pretty cool to see. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. So now we're down in lower engineering, and I was talking about this in I think the last episode or the one before that, I wasn't quite sure what to do with this specific area where we're at right now, and like where I had 2 rows of those corridors coming down on either side where we are right now, and you can see that there's a big gap in the middle. I'm basically toying with the idea of having either a nice big open area in the middle with some type of internal working mechanism, maybe like a water filtration system or something like that. I'm not really sure as of yet, but I think that's the idea of where I'm going with it. That I'm going to build something out that's going to be another massive area. But other than that, I'm honestly not sure what I want to do with this lower engineering area. So if you have a suggestion, now's the time to let me know, because I'm really approaching that point where I'm reaching the end of this build. So once that happens, I'm not going to be coming back to the Enterprise D unless there's a super significant reason to make me want to revisit it, to do some more episodes. I don't see it happening. I really think that once I'm done with this thing, I'm going to be done and I won't be coming back to it. So if there's an area that you want to see me add, now's the time to ask in the comments section while I'm still working on the ship. That's all I'm going to say on that. But anyway, now you can see that we're just basically, what I'm building out right now is I'm basically just covering up this orange and the black. That's my only goal right now, to cover this up, because I don't want those the main engineering area to stick out all that much. Now we will have a little bit of orange on the left and right side of this back piece here, just for aesthetics. I think that looks pretty cool. We haven't even built out or re-added the walkway on either side right here. That's going to be coming back. You know, again, right here, that just, everything I'm doing right now, go with your patterns. You know, you start going with your patterns and cut lines you have to work with. If you're not sure what to do, it can guide you 110% on what you're doing. And that's all I'm doing here. I'm just looking at my cut lines, I'm looking at my patterns to see what I can do and see how it looks. And honestly, it doesn't look that bad. It looks pretty good, actually. So now we've got most of that wall built up. Now we're just going to close in the ceiling here, because this is going to be another engineering deck. They're not looking too bad. What I can say is that we are actually going to be doing a few more videos on engineering, because like I was saying before, you know, engineering is going to extend out beyond its main level that you saw in the show. It's going to go up into the neck a little bit, because in my neck of the ship, there's the battle bridge, the cargo rooms, and then engineering. And then the airlock, of course, getting on to the ship. And then in the lowest part of the neck is the torpedo room. But we've already actually built out the torpedo room, so we're in pretty good shape on that. Now we just got to add in some of the other areas. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I'm not really crazy about the orange that you can still see on the left and right side there, but that shape that we have going on there, that doesn't look too bad at all. And basically what we're doing right here is we're just pretty much closing in our warp core, because I don't want people to see it from this back side. And this line here, we're just bringing it straight back. See how we're doing on time. We're actually shot through 22 minutes. That did not feel like a 22-minute episode today. Like they say, time flies when you're having fun. We're in pretty good shape here. Got one more block to put in. I think that's going to do it today for this episode. What's cool though is that we have a nice shaft in here. If I decide I want to add anything in here for like a viewing or a work area for the lower part of the warp core, we've already got the template in place, which would be very, very handy. But I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've got a little bit of work done today. Feeling pretty good. You know, this is why the last episode was so vital, because it was basically getting prep work done for today's episode. And these prep work episodes that we've done in the past, they may not be as fun as when we flesh out some of these areas like we did today, but they're just as vital because it gets us to these points. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank you again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, or just want to drop by and say, hey, be sure to drop a comment below. I'll try to help you out if I can. And I think that's about going to do it today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode, and I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know on Discord.